Hi, I'm Liz.
And I'm Rhea.
Welcome to Karma's My Bitch, a podcast about love,
sex,
connection,
abundance,
joy,
purpose,
peace,
and how life isn't simply the stories we tell ourselves.
That was
I actually quite like the title of this. And I know you'd think I'd assume it was Debbie Downer, but it's more, if I could go, why am I staying? What is it that makes me stay? It's a bit like asking, what's the point? Like, what's my point? It's actually, I quite like it. I'm actually into it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think I was just calling it Debbie Downer because I was like, oh God, is she just going to find this really depressing again?
No, because the thing is the truth is that life is worth living. And in the short term, yes, the answer can feel like no, because the grind can feel like a lot, right?
I mean,
like
karma makes life shitty.
We've just lost sight of the value of human life and the value of what it means to be alive. And because none of us are actually living our purpose, none of us are actually living in joy and having fun and doing all the amazing things that humanity affords us, we've kind of mired ourselves in a world that we don't like. But it's not a world that we have to live in, right? So there's a difference between living and living in a world that we don't like. And I think that's the bit that I think I always really struggled with. Like when I think about it, and, people who would have listened to other podcasts will know this. We've had some trigger warnings on some of them. People who have read the books, definitely I was like a lot of wah, a lot. And no judgment on it because I was really in a bad place, a lot. And I remember just thinking, if I can't live as me and have it work out, then I don't want to be here. So for me, this answer of, if I could go, why should I stay, is you can stay because you can live as you and have it work out.
Yeah, but you have to make the bold choice. And that's really what you struggled with. I mean, we often get mired in that feeling of what's the point of it all? If the world's not going to really change, then why should I be around? Like, why should I stick around for the payoff? And what we share is you have to provide that payoff. And the payoff gets bigger and bigger. And now that's not the carrot. But for you, the reason why it got so difficult too was the fact that you spent so many years denying how difficult it was.
Yes, so I had to feel all how difficult it was, yeah.
Exactly. So what ended up kind of crashing down around you were all the things that you had denied. Because in order to support our lives in karma, and our egos are very good at this, we'll put on blinders. We won't allow ourselves to feel all the feelings. We won't allow ourselves to acknowledge all the shitty circumstances. We'll only acknowledge and feel what we believe we're capable of handling.
And that's why we keep having all these battles over where we belong, the spaces we can occupy. We get embedded in all these fights and all these little battles that we lose sight of the bigger picture of what we experience on this life on earth. And I know that I always joke that I'm like one sentence away from being cancelled, but it's true because ultimately we're all human. We all have the same core. We all love, even though apparently that's not so important anymore.
There's value in it.
We all shit, breathe and eat and all those things. And I know, and I've been really feeling this a lot recently, where the more we serve to believe that we are separate from each other with these, like, what effectively comes down to very superficial differences, the more that we are not united and the more people who have power over us keep it.
Yeah.
It works. Divide and conquer, right? Divide and conquer is effectively the name of the game when it comes to separation.
Very much, yes.
And we have enabled that time and time and time again.
Yeah. There's a perpetrator and a victim for every story. There's a hero and a villain.
We are different from each other and we should be aware of those differences and dig our heels into those differences rather than seeing that we are all free to love and be whoever the fuck we want to be. And it doesn't impact anyone else.
Because that otherness is going to define us all the time, as opposed to our differences just being how we are distinct from one another, but not necessarily erases how connected we are.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, when we're embodied, like, there's so much to accomplish. There's so much to do. There's so much to create and to innovate and to enjoy. And as you've said, which I kind of understand in a different way, is that we can't operate in a void. There's so much to connect to. right? Whether it's something physical or another person or an idea or to bring forward, there's so much. But when we keep pouring all of that creativity and will and power into battles against each other that don't belong to us, they belong to separation, they don't belong to us.
No.
Then we end up losing all the amazing things we could create because we keep perpetuating what we don't want. Because that's the thing that I realized and why I've tried over time to operate differently. The more I kind of wade into us versus them in the very minutiae of the human versus the human, right? The more I keep that separation alive.
Yeah.
Actually, it's us versus all of the temples.
Yes.
That's the truth. That's what
yeah.
it really is.
Yeah. It's the enslaved humanity, right? So all of humanity against the temples.
And we have some kind of semblance of power because we think that by sharing something on social media or getting someone to change their mind or effectively just silencing them so they agree with us.
So they capitulate.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. We think that that's how you end up exerting your power because you're standing up for something and that's what justice is and all that kind of stuff. Well, no, that's not justice for humanity. And don't get me wrong, I think, as you said earlier, it's really important for us to see the breadth of how much separation has hurt us. And sometimes it's really in our faces.
Yeah.
And it really fucking sucks. And I think there's always a space for people to be made aware of what's going on. But the cause and effect of what we're being told is so small when it's so much bigger. It's not about religion, race, money, gender. It's about this bigger framework. And that bigger framework is what's hurting everybody.
Yes.
And the people who are perpetuating that framework, as you say, the ones who've chosen separation, it's not even us and them. It's us no longer putting our energy towards that framework because without our energy, it ceases to exist.
It becomes dismantled because it relies on the support, right?
Yeah.
It relies on a belief system
Yeah.
that it does enslave, which is why it's always about consciousness. It comes down to that time and again. A consciousness is actually what answers that question. Should I stay or should I go? Because my answer shows where I'm at. Can I believe in myself enough to be willing to commit at least part of my life to answer that question and discover and explore what that means to me? To me, that's enough.
Can I experience all the different ways that I can see, feel, touch, and know beauty and connection and joy and fun? Can I take all the spoils of my humanity whilst not spoiling it for anyone else?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the layer to what I was saying.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Because I was saying the general way, am I willing to discover what that means for me? And you're saying, beauty, fun, joy, etc. And I'm like, but that is, there's the larger question.
Yeah.
And how we choose to answer that is really up to us. But we have to understand that we have the power to answer that, where most people don't believe they do.
There's a huge power of choice in it. We just don't realize we're making it. And I think that's the thing. And I think for me, that's why the karmic undoing process was so key and instrumental to understanding this, is that once I could understand that I was choosing to react the way that I was reacting in all these shitty stories that I was in, I was the one, and anyone who's read any book will know this by now of ours, but I was the one choosing to turn up as who I thought I needed to be. I was the one who kept choosing to believe that it was all going to blow up in my face. I was the one who chose I wasn't good enough and therefore reacted and acted from that space. So, and then I made it a self-fulfilling prophecy. There is a chapter in A Karmic Affair which changed my life when I finished writing it, because I effectively charted all the different relationships I'd had and how they'd all blown up in my face. And once I'd done that, I could see I was the one who'd blown each one of them up. You need to be able to see it.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to realize that you're the one choosing this reality simply because you're believing something that goes contrary to your knowing.
Yeah.
And ultimately being able to understand, wow, my choice is so powerful as creating a reality, then you can extrapolate it from there and understand that my choice for any of this separation game is lending itself to separation.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it might seem surprising to people how I react to things, how I engage with things, how I'm such a warrior, but sometimes I choose not to fight. But actually, my fight isn't against another person. My fight isn't even against a specific institution. It's against the structures in which we all live in. And the only way that I adequately fight that is sometimes to just remove my energy entirely from it. So there's less energy. As we said, one more happy person in the world is a purpose. It's to serve.
Yeah.
And another way I do it is to, sometimes I do speak up. But what I'm speaking up to is always very deliberate. I don't want to give the burden of separation to another generation.
No.
And it's funny because I remember like one of my really dark moments when I was like, should I stay, and all of that kind of stuff. I remember at one point you said to me, but Rhea, what about all the children? All these children that will grow up and end up separating themselves to fit into separation. I mean, at the time it really wasn't enough. And I was like, I don't care, Liz. I'm just very selfish in my pain. So now I'm not in my pain. I don't want to separate myself, but I don't want anyone else. I don't want to be complicit in anyone else's separation either.
No, not at all.
And that's how the values really, that they're your values. And that's how you're so connected to yourself, because you want that same freedom and power for everyone around you. And that it doesn't infringe upon yours.
Yeah. And it's not easy, especially as a parent. If you really are committed to making sure your children are in their power, you also have to make room to be your own powerful being, right? Because that requires greater and greater power. And if you're in your karma, you're just growing as they're growing, and it's all just really painful and shitty and uncomfortable, right? That's where kind of the delayed gratification comes, is you really see it play out as your children get older, as that new generation comes up, and you see, yes, they can advocate for themselves. Yes, they can stand up for themselves. Yes, they can own what they want. Yes, they are in touch with their purpose, or they are operating from their fate, because a lot of this younger generation, they came in with little to no karma. Maybe they adopted a karmic theme from a parent, or maybe they're like working on behalf of a collective karmically, right? But if they're not, and these children can live from their fates from the age of, like, I would say, funny enough, as young as 10 onward.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's why, we're seeing kids make strides in scientific fields and all these other fields, because they're just not hampered by their sense of otherness or their sense of not good enough. Okay. But no child, ideally, should be a part of the separation story anymore. That is finished. There is enough consciousness to ensure that the entire future generation does not have separation experiences.
I find that insane.
Yeah.
I don't even see how that's possible, but cool.
I wonder that too. I'm like, well, what about those children birthed in countries where perhaps...
Children birthed to parents who are mired in separation. I feel mired is going to be like the word of the season.
Okay, so but if you can imagine... Sorry, I feel like we only used it once in this episode.
I've used it 4 times in my consciousness of today.
Okay, well, so if you... So I'm asking this because I do find this interesting, because it's not just being born to parents in separation, but in countries where separation defines their entire structure. But can you see and understand that a lot of these younger generations are coming in with solid consciousness? You think about those girls in Afghanistan who stand up for themselves and demand education as young as they are. There's a lot of this younger generation. They are actually coming in unbending in their consciousness.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's what we mean. Are we unbending
in ours now?
We are firm in our consciousness, but it's not the same as theirs, because it's all they know. Okay. Whereas it's not what we all know. Like, we still have memories. Faint, cloudy memories in my mind, but still memories of. So for children, it's about externalizing their light, right? As opposed to...
But not shining their light for others to see.
Nope. Happiness is a child's nature. It is their nature of being.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And for a child to really understand and explore and express that happiness, they need a certain amount of freedom. Play, to have fun. When a child's light is extinguished, it's because they're bearing burdens. And we always talk about we want to make children responsible, but it's really what they're capable of caring in terms of their responsibilities. It's different. But a child needs to know freedom at every stage to a certain degree while acquiring different types of responsibilities that are appropriate to their evolution, whatever that means. So it's not about age appropriateness. It's always about self or individual appropriateness.
So I guess that we're the ones with the responsibility because we have to honor, respect, and protect children so they can achieve what they're here for.
And they can show us bliss. They can be examples of that if allowed full consciousness, freedom to live out their evolution. Yeah. Thank you for listening. For more information, articles, and inspiration, find us at karmasmybitch.com and at karmasmybitch.insta.
And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review.